Welcome back, episode 59 of the Ground Up podcast. We do have some Ground Up news. Last week's episode basically got 1,000 listens in the first week.
Question is though, Ryan, how many times did you click on and off it?
This is my message to house builders. Get on with it. Labour has taken radical action to overhaul the planning system and get Britain building again as part of our plan for change to build 1.5 million homes. Now, developers must roll up their sleeves and play their part. It's unacceptable that sites with planning permission gather dust for decades while a generation struggle to get on the housing ladder. Quite a threat there.
We are on the cusp of greatness. It was like one of those 2p machines. I've been putting lots of 2p's in and nothing's moved. That gold bar on the edge is still very much on the edge. So mate, I'm going to kick the machine in a minute, yeah.
JD Vance in America at the Bitcoin 2025 summit doing his keynote speech, and he's basically spent the whole time going, buy Bitcoin.
I'm going to buy £500 worth today.
Yeah.
I did.
Ground up sound. Ooh, yeah. Real estate deals. We lay them down. Let's get those deals. Deals. Deals making money, baby.
Welcome back, episode 59 of the Ground Up podcast. In this episode, we are going to be talking about Labour's new planning policies that they're rolling out to become a bit more dictatorial, particularly on the big house bashers of the UK, trying to force through planning and force through house bashing. So we're going to talk about some of that and the potential implications on the housing sector. We're going to look at some of the easements that they've brought in for smaller house builders, which is interesting. You know, is it as good as it looks? Are they really making life easier for us? Are they going to look at potentially abolishing biodiversity net gain on small sites? We will see. And of course, we're going to be talking about Bitcoin today because it is an important day to talk about Bitcoin. Every day is an important day to talk about Bitcoin, but we're going to touch on some movements that happen there in America. And then we're going to chinwag. So enjoy the episode. If you don't know who we are 4 property developers from the UK. You've got Stuart Wyeth, Dorian Payne, Jack Jiggins, and myself, Ryan Beaumont. And between us, we've got hundreds of millions of pounds in property developments. We employ a lot of staff, so we talk about business, property, our trials and tribulations every week on this show. But yeah, make sure you subscribe. You know, let's just start the episode nicely. Subscribe. It'd be very helpful for us. Like, drop us a comment, share the episode. Big love. And let's crack on. So, Stuart, how's your week been, mate? How's this new house coming along?
Yeah, it's good, mate. Yeah, going through legals, really excited. Got ours sold. Just sort of the realization of having to liquidate some of my Bitcoin. I've got 2 quotes for one is a Lombard facility in Switzerland where I can basically take 50% loan out on a bit of my Bitcoin, which is the gap I need to bridge the difference of the mortgage. That trying to get a mortgage when you pay yourself like 12.5 grand a year is quite difficult, especially when you buy like over $500,000. So that's been interesting. When even Halifax, who I'm with, Nationwide, no, I'm with Halifax. They basically said, yeah, we'll lend you an extra 36 grand. I was like, are you insane? It's like you can't get a second-hand family car for 36 grand these days. So I've had to be a bit creative with my broker, but that's good. So yeah, moving on. Business is good. One of our investors has decided they want to pull out of the Windsor deal. So it was a sort of 3-year deal, that she wants to pull out. So I'm going to try and find the 25% equity partner who wants to stay in on a commercial deal, because we sort of changed the goalpost a bit. We're going to do 2 flats. We're now going to rent the whole building out on a 15-year, no breaks, to a pretty good commercial tenant. So I'm going to need to find an investor who wants to be a part of that over the next sort of 2-3 years, let it stabilize, and then refi it in maybe 4 or 5 years time. So if not, I'll use my pension funds to fill that gap. The bank's done. We've started at Twickenham. We're cracking on, mate. Now I'm desperately looking for another deal where we're working with our QS to really break down we've got about 4 or 5 deals we're looking at, and we're just trying to bring our build costs down as cheap as possible to pay people what they want for some of these buildings, because we're still finding everyone's way too much for a vacant office that's got no income. So we're struggling to get a deal that's going to stack to hit our quota and our profit margins. But apart from that, all good, mate.
Beautiful, mate. Just out of interest, quick, on the Windsor deal. So what are they going to, I don't know if you can disclose it, but what are they going to do with the upper floors if they're not going to be apartments?
They're going to leave them. They're paying us 11 grand a year per floor just to own them. So we don't, what they don't want to do is they don't want us to put a doorway in and minimise the width on the front, because it's quite a narrow shop front in a great location. So we were like, well, we really want to do the 2 flats above and do the Airbnb. And they're like, well, we really want the space, but we don't want you to put the doorway in. And they didn't want to do a shared lobby, which is our original idea. So they basically just come back, went to board within 24 hours. We had 6 people turn up to site, and within 24 hours they said, yeah, we want it, and we'll pay you the agreed price above, which is good, because at the moment things yields are about 6%, but this should easily be 50 basis points below that, which adds quite a lot of impact to the value of the building. And because they're doing 15 years, we've given them 6 months rent free, which again is quite good. It's normally 12 months rent free for every 10 years that they sign in. So we've done quite well there, but which means we're going to have to bridge it, do some strip out. We've got all the planning approved now, and then we'll hand them the building. But really, because we've got index linked over 2 sets of 5 years, so 5 years between 1% and 4%, and I think it's 1 and 4 in year 10. So even if we keep it for 5 years, let it establish, let them get comfortable, and then and obviously if interest rates come down and commercial yields lower, and it goes from 6% to 5%, then that adds quite a lot of value to the building site. So and it's just a beautiful building that me and my other business partner, who's a good friend of mine, we want to hold it for the kids anyway. So we'll see. Just got, yeah, it's a great building, good location. So don't want to sell it if we don't have to.
Yeah, for anyone who doesn't know, that building is literally staring at Windsor Castle, right in the windows of Windsor Castle. So, all right,
And the shower of
D.
Charles,
How you getting on, D? Prince Charles, King
King
Charles,
Charles even.
King Charles.
Sounds good.
My hair's
Stu.
growing quick, D. How long have I not been on it? I missed a few weeks, mate.
Yeah,
You had a haircut last time I was here.
Yeah, do you know what? I've always struggled to get my hair cut. I don't know why. I think last time I had I just hate going to the barbers. You know, when you go there and you have to wait for fucking 2 hours and you listen to everybody else talk stuff and you're just like, oh.
So Dorian, as barbers, you pay a little bit more and you can book it in, and that's probably worth your time doing that.
Just to book it in, man.
My barber's 32 quid, but I turn up, he's booked in for me, cuts my hair, and I go, and he gives me all the gossip in Henley. Yeah,
All the gossip.
you wouldn't believe what he does for me.
We'll stop that there.
Right, yeah, so we'll stop now there. So yeah, no, for me it's been a busy time. We've got, as I said last time, we are on the cusp of greatness, and I don't think that's moved because it has been half term. We're still very much on the cusp of greatness, but it's like one of those 2p machines. I've been putting lots of 2p's in, and nothing's moved. You know, that big chunk of like that gold bar on the edge is still very much on the edge. So yeah, fucking mate, I'm gonna kick the machine in a minute. Yeah, definitely. That's what I feel like. But anyway, I very quickly, because I know we are tight for time, I think I wanted to just share 2 things. One, in terms of some good news-ish, we're very close to signing our JV deal with the Social Impact Fund. And obviously when that happens, disclose it in more information. But I've been working on that for a long time now, said it several times, and it's quite game-changing for the business, and we're getting close. So fingers crossed, over the next 3-4 weeks, I can get it over the line, and that is really good. It's a 10 to 25 million pound JV. The other bit of good news is that we had a planning approved at committee, which we'll touch on with one of the points because that got locked due to ecology. So we will talk about that. And another bit of news which is also useful is obviously we traded through the high inflation period, and when I was scaling the business, we acted with significant amount of pride and didn't really try to get much assistance, or wasn't really talking to the clients about, you know, how much cost has moved, or what we talked about it, but we said, you know, we'll resolve it. The meetings always started with, yeah, there's a problem, but we got a plan, because I'm a solutions based person. I never like, I don't like having a problem and not already having a plan for it. But obviously, but what's come to light is that, you know, other companies in the sector have had assistance where we've actually not received much assistance from the public sector, if that makes sense, because we've not actively said or made a point of the movement in cost, and we were in a fixed price contract for some of our historic jobs. So in recent events, I've been in conversation with directors at some of our clients and also Welsh Government. And it's been positive that there is actually a good amount of support, and they understand and they're empathetic, and they want us to They want us to do well. They want us to keep building. We're building nearly 300 homes right now in construction across Wales, and we have a pipeline of 1,000. So I would consider ourselves to be quite a strategic partner to deliver social housing across Wales. And it looks like they're seeing us to be the same as well. But I'm currently in conversations with various clients, and the potential value of support is in the several £100,000s, which for us as a business is really, really good. And obviously, it's not done yet, and it's still a long way to go. But there's some green shoots there. And I suppose the other bit of good news is we finished a job recently that we signed, obviously a couple of years back, and it's successfully finished at at or above our minimum target margin, which is kind of showing, and with our cost data, that whilst there's still a bit of uncertainty, that the margins return, the business model is kind of proven, investor confidence is returning. So I'm having some really good conversations at the moment with different funds, etc. But yeah, without dragging it on, that's my news. So I'm still putting two peas in the machine.
Nice, mate. It sounds positive. It sounds like moving in the right direction.
Or is it like law of attraction to some degree? Like, Dorian, like you've obviously been working very hard on a strategy you're doing, and it sounds like that you're now realizing things are probably starting to warm towards you a little bit more than actually you having to get out the door and hunt like Batman.
Yeah, Lady Luck. It's feeling like Lady Luck is starting to show her face. They say that the business needs luck, right? But you have to stay in the game long enough to get lucky. That you have to work. The harder you work, the longer you're in the game, the luckier you get.
Or it might be the calm before the storm. You never know.
No. I know. I said this before. I've battled through storms in a fucking dinghy boat, and I've come around.
Rocky seas make good sailors.
And they also make for long hairdos. Have you find most sailors have long hair?
The amount we've talked about Dorian's hair on this podcast is
Starting
mad.
to feel jealous, aren't you, Ryan?
Yeah, it's like when you cross the border in England, we talk about the weather. Over there, they go, "Oh, you got your haircut, boy."
That's unique.
I think you've
How you
crossed the
getting on?
wrong fucking island there, Jack, and landed in Ireland.
I love it how you always push me to Irish. I'm actually part Irish, so that would make sense.
How you getting on, there, Jack?
How YouTube been? Yeah, go on.
Yeah, good. So, I mean, for anyone that's tuning in for me ranting about the social housing stuff, we've kind of mediated the situation, got a period of time. I think we said in any position or situation in business, you either need more time or more money. We've got the time, and now we just need more money, which is good because you kind of need a bit of a clear head to strategically capital raise. And the way that it was positioned and propositioned to us, you can't strategically capital raise. Which is good. So we got the time on that. Yeah, we're just busy chugging along as normal, really. Ben's been away for a few weeks. He's sort of making the most of family holidays before his eldest son starts school. But we've had a few planning applications approved. The bank planning cast G was approved, so we're cracking on with that. The job's out with a couple of builders in terms of tender to get going on that. That'll be quite a cool scheme. Our cluster flat scheme is pretty much there, which will like furniture going in next week, so that'll be going to market and refinancing. We've also got a 7-bed HMO and Central Suites going to market as well and refinancing. So loads of projects sort of turning around. We're still having a bit of luck on sales, which is really good. So selling flats essentially, and then chugging along with these two big deals that we got in legals, which I'm a little bit more confident with than I was last week. So it's two completely different schemes. One's new build, one's conversion. 12 million GDV, both of them. So ideally just need to get those nudged over the line. That's kind of semi my job done in acquisitions for a short period of time. The slight challenge with it is I've funded the land deal, as in the package is ready and it's there to go. The other deal is a £2.5 million equity ticket from an investment. So it's like the biggest raise that we've done on one deal. But I'm quietly confident we've got some options. So yeah, just working on that at the moment. I spoke at Reading Property Meet yesterday, which is like my localist event, which I love going back there and speaking, and always talk about the same things like acquisitions and capital raising. And it's one thing that I actually found really weird is it was kind of the first time where I've gone back to an event where there's a lot of starters, like people that have got one buy to let or transitioning from work. And I actually came to realize in that yesterday, more prevalent than ever, that I actually don't do a lot of the doing anymore. Like people be like, "How do you do this?" I'm like, "Well, I don't do it anymore. Someone in my team does it." And then someone else was like, "How do you do this?" I was like, "Well, I didn't do that either. Someone in my team does it." And I've never felt that way when I'm presenting. I always feel like I'm the property guy that's doing this, that, and the other. And that was definitely a huge realization, because that's really unhelpful to say I don't do it, someone else does it in the team, because they can't then take that away and make it action. uh,
Well, we do have some ground up news. So last week's episode, at the time of recording, so we're recording this on the 30th of May, and the episode we released last, it's a rounding error, but it basically got 1,000 listens, 1,000 listeners in the first week, which is the first time we've done that. And that was sort of our goal when we set this out. Was we were like, first goal is to get 1,000 people listening every week. Like if we've got 1,000 people every week, then that's a great first step.
Question is though, Ryan, how many times did you click on and off it?
Well, I contribute to a lot of those, but that should cross
998. My mum, to be fair, I called her and said, "Can you watch it?" And she did. Bless her.
Yeah, we've got very supportive families. But yeah, 1,000 people in the first week, which is great.
To quantify that, I always think about, imagine 1,000 people in a room. That is a lot. That's really good. Thank you, listeners. Big up. Right, tell us about your week. That is big news, but tell us about your week. Be honest.
Week has been good. Just lots going on, man. Like, yeah, it's lots going on, moving on all fronts. We just keep having, like, this month's mental. I think we've onboarded like across the board. It must be something like 15 new clients. And I've got a new sales guy coming next week for a full training session. And I say sales guy, and it's not really sales; it's more like investment consultation. Um, and we're just steaming on all fronts. We're bringing on new investors, and everything that we planned on the sales and marketing side, everything works now. So I've moved all my attention off of investment calls, and now I'm onto systems. So this week I had an IT, like an IT systems automation specialist. That's what ChatGPT told me to put the job description as, based on the job description that I gave it. Um, and he came in yesterday, did like a 3-hour deep dive, and he's coming back in next week. And the whole idea there is I want to bring him in, look at all these different softwares that we have running, and go, like, piece by piece, where can we improve efficiency? Where can we bring in automations? Where can we strap in some APIs? Where can we make some of these systems speak more coherently? And that's like one of my next ongoing projects. It will take many months to add and implement a lot of these different things that we want to do. But ultimately, it's going to make us more efficient, quicker at doing stuff, beat our competition, all that kind of stuff. So excited about that. Other than that, yeah, acquiring more properties. My little brothers are just about finishing college now. They've got 2 more exams left, but they're almost working full time for the business now. And the second they do, and they leave college, and I've got them both 9 to 5. Well, not 9 to 5. It'll be like 7 till midnight. And I can already see the impact they're going to have, which is great. Yeah, man, just push as much as possible. Life is good.
Right, you should do a personality psychometrics test on both of them now, to like help them carve their role in the org.
Yeah, it's interesting. I was saying to, actually, I had Blue Bricks magazine, shout out. They came to the office yesterday. Yeah, Sam Cook and I think Victoria, I forgot a second name. Victoria came down. Who's Sam's editor now. Did a piece on us. They're lovely. Shout out Blue Bricks.
Good egg.
Yeah,
Yeah,
really well
it's
networked
got-
as well. That's their magazine, or one of their last
That's not
issues.
Sam. That's not Sam, by the way.
Yeah, that's Alfie Best. Just ignore that. There we are, Blue Bricks magazine. But they're just really well done. Lovely guy. They're really trying to add, value to the property space and to their listeners. And I've also gone through some of their people that they've got on there and said, can we have this person on the podcast? So that'd be interesting. See if we can get some more people on. But yeah, but when she was asking me a load of questions, she was asking, what's it like working with your family? Because I think a lot of people kind of think, oh, working with family, what's that like? And I said, every family's different, so you've always got different family dynamics. But weirdly, my family of 6 all work for the business, but you could cut us in half and just go, You got me, my dad, and Sammy, who are kind of like, we're go-getters, like hungry, want to get shit done, like don't really want a day-to-day routine. We just want to be able to go and do things. And then my mum, Robbie, and Sean, who are more like supportive, like they like supporting things, don't necessarily want to be like, chucked out into the fray and go and do things they might feel uncomfortable with. So there's like a nice support between the two. So that's just a bit of advice out there for anyone. If you do want to work with family, it can work, but you need complementary skills like you would in any partnership. But yeah, anyway, that's me. That's us. Ground up, moving up, 1,000 listeners. Fucking love it. Makes me so excited that I'm like, yes, 1,000 listeners each week.
Right, I watched your vlog the other day. When you're like repping the ground up hoodie, and I think you said something like, "We will get to a million subscribers on YouTube," and I rated that. There we go.
We will, mate. We fucking will. You just wait. It's happening. It's happening. But there's other stuff happening as well in the world, so we'll get onto these bits. I'm sure you guys have seen this by now. Let's get the glasses on. So Labour have come out with a bit of a joust against the big house bashers. So I'm going to do a little bit of reading here just to bring everyone up to speed who's listening. So Keir Starmer posted this on his LinkedIn, and it's all gone across the media. So large housing sites can take at least 14 years to build, meaning working families and young people spend years deprived of home ownership. This is my message to house builders. Get on with it. My government has taken radical action to overhaul the planning system and get Britain building again as part of our plan for change to build 1.5 million homes. Now, developers must roll up their sleeves and play their part. It's unacceptable that sites with planning permission gather dust for decades while a generation struggle to get on the housing ladder. So, we're announcing new measures to make sure developers build the homes they promised. For the first time, house builders will have to commit to delivery timeframes before they get planning permission. Councils will get new powers to keep house builders on track. Those deliberately sitting on vital land without building the homes promised could see their sites acquired by councils where there is a case in the public interest and stripped of future planning permission. Quite a threat there. It's quite a threat. And I'm interested to see what you guys think. I think, Dorian, I don't know if this actually starts to affect you.
From our point of view, I'll be honest with you, we don't really have had any sites that we have permission on that we're not actively pushing to build on. In fact, we obviously have some sites right now that have planning permission that we can't build, and that's just because we're waiting just to get into contract. And frustratingly, but as the developer, I am pushing and kicking to try to get onto site to start building. So this doesn't really have any impact to me, I don't think, because uh, I just can't see us being in a position where we're going to bank a planning permission and not build it, or choose not to build it for what we do anyway. I can see though why the problem you have with house building is that, like we've talked about before, if the market's shit, why would you build when you can't sell? Why it's do you know what I mean? It's and also it's how they calculate it, because you might have a site that's got permission for 300 homes. You can't build 300 homes all simultaneously. It happens in phases. So it just depends how they're, but I am in favor if there genuinely is sites out there with planning permission that maybe no one's building them and the vendors refusing to sell them because of aspirations. I agree. I think they should be penalised. Puts more pressure on getting those plots sold to another builder who will actually build them. But from me as an SME developer, I don't think this has any impact on me whatsoever, unless I'm really oversimplifying it.
So hang on just 1 second. There's direct and indirect impact, right? So direct impact is you and your sites and you commencing on your sites for those reasons. And I completely agree with you. I'm in the same boat, Dorian, that it doesn't directly impact you. But what's the indirect implication of a national home builder now not being able to land bank? Like the Berkeley groups have probably got enough land for 50. If they didn't do a single planning application from today onwards, they could probably still keep developing for 15 plus years. What is that indirect impact to us in the industry, because they are direct competition?
So when I think two things are going to happen. As you all know, there's these tools in the planning system, and it all comes down to the definition. You could get planning permission, but it might not be implementable, and a house builder may just play the game on delaying how until it becomes implementable. so that the clock starts ticking. I don't exactly know how they're going to. It all of this comes in the detail. From that statement there, can't see. You can't measure the impact it's going to have because there just isn't enough detail on when what the penalty is, when does the penalty come into play, what the exclusions from that penalty, and people are just going to dance in that game. Like we've got a site right now, literally with in a different game where we've got planning permission for it, subject to signing the 106, and we are tactfully, maybe I shouldn't put this on recording, but delaying the signing of the section 106. Not necessarily because we don't want to build it, but for a secondary issue. Like we don't want a clock ticking on our contract position. And by the way, whilst I put it out there is genuinely issues with our 106 that need negotiating, and that negotiation we expect is going to take a few months. But yeah, I hopefully indirectly, I would hope that it has a positive impact for us SMEs because if what I'm seeing, not necessarily was well, obviously they got the larger house builders, but I want this to actually expand into vendors that are just sitting on land that's got permission because they are holding out for a higher price.
When you say vendors, are you talking about national home builders or landowners?
Well, both, because some national house builders do sell off parcels of land that's a bit too small for them.
Yeah, I mean, there's very few. I don't actually know the stat. I'd say there's very few landowners that are sat on land, in my opinion, because they've normally gone for a promote structure for a land promoter, which has to crystallise a sale for the promoters to get paid, or they're being bought out by a national home.
Yeah, look, I mean, from our experiences, it is also in the few. But as a developer, you only need one site. There's one of those sites, at 8 figure size. But yeah, like there's not tons of them. I just can't from an SME development point of view. Even if I can't see what massive impact it's going to have on us personally.
I just want to touch on one thing as well, just for our viewers' benefit also, who maybe some people aren't too attuned to how these big boys work with their land banking and having this huge kind of runway of pipeline. But one of the reasons, the government's obviously throwing out political bullshit here, but I'm sure they'll do something stupid and try and apply pressure on these big boys. But if you think about it from a common sense perspective, these big boys have so much data on what's happening in the market and sales and saturation levels and things like that. There's a reason they don't force through and try and sell and develop all of their pipeline at any given at one time, regardless of what the country needs, because it's what people can actually buy, pay for, and afford in that given area at that time. They can't just go, here's 1,000 houses because the government forced it. They might want to stagger and go, here's 200 this year, 200 the next year, 200 the year after, to stabilize their sales rate.
It's not just it. So the sales rate is definitely a big factor, but it's also the time it takes to get permission. So the problem they got is that as a house builder, if it takes you, I'm going to simplify this, but if it takes you on average 4 years to get a site from start to legally being able to build, start commencement of build, you should have a 4-year land bank, very high level, because you're going to run out. The problem is if that relationship becomes inverse and they're building faster than the permissions rates coming through, then they can't scale the risk of scaling becomes massive, and then risk of redundancies because of timing issues and borrowing and just massive getting slammed by the public markets because these are public companies and they want consistent results, ideally consistent growing results. If you get a bit of a wobble because you've built faster than the next permissions come in, like SME developers experience, like I literally had a conversation with one of my fellow investors yesterday about a site that should have sold, hasn't sold, because we're waiting on a piece of information from the council.
Sorry, just to touch off on that, Jack, just before I move on to it. So you're saying, as well as there being this potential saturation issue that could massively impact the sales values they can get if they just drop everything at once, they're also then potentially putting in jeopardy their future pipeline because their sales rate is outstripping the pipeline that they're preparing. So they're forecasting and going, can't do that.
All national home builders that sell, it's the ultimate speed of everything is on the sales rate, which Lauren talked about. So like an analogy is the sales rate is the bottom of a funnel, And if the liquid or the, let's say you're using sand, like a sand timer, if the sand timer, which is planning applications and delivery, is less than the sales rate, there's no point in pouring more into the funnel because it costs money, right? So they're always trying to balance that exit. But what I find interesting, and I don't know if it would be good to get everyone else's views. I don't know if you guys can recorded, but it was probably, I would have said probably in the first dozen episodes that we recorded, we talked about the Berkeley Group potentially going into build to rent market. And that is because as a national home developer that exits on the market, they're constantly governed by sales rates, and then they have to work back through construction, borrowing the debt, so that obviously a development company doesn't ever want to build out all of its units and be carrying debt on all of its units if they're not getting sold quick enough. They can keep their debt down by building out what's required in those local regions and areas strategically, again, like the funnel scenario. But if you go into build to rent, you could rent your building out in months, and you could develop out those sites across the course, because the demand for rent is increasing. The average age of a buyer, which we talked about in the last episode, is going up, and we may see more of that. But I still can't see the financial markets warranting renting, because the yields, especially around down south, just don't stack up.
I've stayed quiet through that bit because I wanted to hear your opinion, because I don't really want to do ground up or new build sites for that exact reason. I think this typical Labour getting involved, throwing threats around, where they should just stay out of the free market. How would they implement it? Are they going to implement it on outline planning? If you reapply for planning to change the scheme to better it, when is that going to actually trigger?
Can I just quickly say one thing, Stu, and I'll let you carry on. There is news in the market of Labour government trying to also support SME housing developers. So
That's where they should be spending their time. They should be trying to fix the actual physical problem, because they're not. They're just throwing threats around. You just get on with it. Just get on with it. But there's enough risk for SME builders, and for there's so much risk that people don't take into account when they're trying to throw threats around. And it's just exactly all the costs and stuff. Who wants to sit on a bit of land if you're in a promote or you're borrowing money? You want to get on with it, but it just frustrates me really that you just can't get on with it. I had some notes here, but I forgot what they meant now. But yeah, I don't do new build. I'd much rather get on with fucking. I was writing it down as you lot were talking. I was like, I got 7 points and I can't read my handwriting. I was like, oh shit, like a doctor's note. But yeah, it's just frustrating that they get involved. Just fucking fix the actual problem, which is the planning system, and just let everyone get on with it.
Yeah, amen.
I still think there's two different hats here. There's the national PLC, which I think does impact them, and then there's SMEs, and I don't think this impacts us as much. But playing devil's advocate, obviously, I'm always of the opinion that the government do have a lot of data that we don't probably know from a public point of view. So part of me thinks that this has come out because they have genuine data that's showing that there is genuine strategic hoarding of land from a national scale of PLC level. And if that's the case, and they don't want that to happen, then I'm not against that either. I just think all of this comes back down to the detail, is that sales rates and market finance appetite and market risk, and the planning timescale, they are massive, and that's why there needs to be a land bank of X years. Otherwise, the whole system will crumble. It wouldn't work. I'm sure I read in Barrett's annual report, it takes them on average 8 years from identifying a site and taking it through. I could be wrong there, but like 8 years. 8 years, like fuck me. So Barrett operate on a massive scale there.
Well, D, if you're gonna give them the benefit of the doubt, I'm gonna be more cynical and put my small conspiracy hat on. If we look at everything Labour's done so far, they seem to be squashing out small businesses and helping the multinationals. Look what they've done on the farming side of things, on what they've done to small businesses already with the tax increases, the zero-hour contracts, all those other things. Everything they've done has not helped small businesses. So, and they always say, if government, when they say they're doing something positive here, particularly if it's helping the small guy, well, what are they doing over here? And to me, the big push that seems to be happening is where's the lowest cost of capital? They usually dictate the market. And when you look at the Blackstones, the Granger Groups, the John Lewis and Partners, etc., they're focused on these build to rent models. Jack touched on something interesting, that if you are to force big boys into delivering stock, it's much more feasible for them to do that through build to rent, if they've got a cheap cost of capital that's happy to take the yields. But it looks like the market's already saying it's going to do that, and we did an episode on this. So I feel there could be something like they're pushing for the build to rent sector to get on, to fire up and get going quicker through enacting policy that stops these land bankers from being able to churn out the stock in the traditional way they've done so, and allow this kind of new money to come in to just slap up as much build to rent as possible. And in doing so, they're going, but don't worry, SMEs, we're going to help you. And then on the other hand, they're over-regulating the sector so much that it's not helping us, and the cost of capital we can't compete with when it comes to Blackstone and their source of funds. So I do think we kind of got to be careful of what they say here, read between the lines of, they say one thing here, but they're probably doing something else over there that we're not aware of, and that's very government to do.
I was chatting about this other day in a group, and I used an analogy of what it's like being a developer to take the site through planning and delivery. It's almost like you turn up at Tesco's and the council go, oh yeah, you can come in. You just got to join that queue. Takes an hour to get in. And you're like, right, brilliant. Okay, so you queue for an hour, and you're like, I don't know why it takes an hour. All they got to do is approve the fucking design of 3 units in a back garden development. Anyway. So you get into Tesco's, and they're like, right, you've got 10 minutes to go around and do your shopping, and then you're getting kicked out because there's times you've got to be getting on. And then you go in, they're like, oh, you're not allowed to run there, you're not allowed to do that, you're not allowed to do that. There's a bat here, so you're not allowed to go down the pizza aisle. So go back that way and waste 3 more minutes. And anyway, you get to end of your shop, you bought fucking half of what you expected. It's taken you 10 minutes, and then you go out, and it's basically like the principle is they're what you want to do is turn up, go into Tesco's, do your shop, and fuck off, and pay tax on it, and then move on. But
And because of inflation, the cost, as you walked in, it's double the price to build or to buy it before you walk out the shop. And that's all levers that the government can play around with as well.
30p for a recyclable bag as well that costs 1p.
Oh, fucking hell, the bag stuff pisses me off. Well, look, now we've touched on it, should we move on to what they are starting to say on the SME side of things? The slightly more positive news around for SMEs, and take this as you will. But this is straight from the BBC. So, environmental rules reviewed for small house builders. Environmental rules that force developers in England to improve wildlife habitats could be eased under government plans to make it easier to build homes on smaller sites. The government is reviewing biodiversity net gain (BNG) requirements under which builders must compensate for the loss of any nature on housing developments. Ministers say they are considering how costs can be reduced for smaller house builders whilst also delivering habitats for wildlife. So what do you think here, guys? Are they essentially just rolling back BNG for us sort of SME developers? That's obviously going to be helpful. Do you think it's that helpful? Do you think it's like a little thing, like kind of taking the sprinkles off the top rather than actually going for the layers of the cake and really making things easier?
I've got an opinion based in Wales. We have a different system, and Wales haven't come out and suggested the same as of yet. But I know firsthand that ecology has caused a significant disruption to planning permissions, and the problem is that they've basically weighted it with the same importance as building new homes. And whilst I understand the principle behind that, the issue they have is that a common sense, pragmatic approach hasn't been taken. Because when I've spoken to some senior officials in Welsh government, for example, they expected, a common sense, pragmatic or solution to come to approach to be happening. But in reality, if you give an ecology consultee basically carte blanche, which is what they have kind of effectively in Wales to some point, because it's more subjective in Wales, on the importance of, they're just objecting to development because the way it is, if you can't prove a betterment, then the answer is no. But some sites, especially the smaller sites as well, where you just don't have the space, like we're a brownfield developer, and some of the ecology on sites is what's come up over time, maybe because of neglect as well. Whereas the density gets absolutely hammered. You don't have enough space, etc. But more importantly, that the issue I have with it all is that the authority was taken away effectively from, like, planning officers don't have the authority to override uh like ecology's, the consultee's opinion in Wales anyway. So I think if they simplify the process here, it would definitely improve consents. It would definitely make life easier. Like, we've got an allocated site now that's taken 2.5 years to finally get an approval at planning committee, and the ecologist was still objecting, even though everyone else isn't, and that was touch and go in planning committee, but the planning officer and the head of planning recommended it for approval, even because we tried every approach and it took us 2 years to do so, and we still couldn't get them to remove their objection. They were just hanging it on this biodiversity net benefit issue. So yeah, I think it is a problem, and that's why they're looking to simplify it for smaller, and I think it will help. I know some developers in England, I don't know, Jack, if you've come across it, where a tree was already chopped down, but the stump was classed as high ecology value, and they wouldn't move from a significant sum needing to be paid, like from a credit, uh rendering the site unviable. It's just like, I mean, that's not really, they didn't chop the tree down, but the stump remained. So it's like, what do you do? So do you want a stump there, or should we actually build houses? It's like, what do you?
Yeah, I mean, it's super difficult, isn't it? It's basically a bunch of hippies that put a load of ruling in a very complicated market, which is construction. And is new modelings. There's always going to be flaws. Like when they were socialising the idea of BNG, they were like, we want 100% allocation of improvement of biodiversity net gain per site. And actually, when you think about it, if there's one little hedge tree plantation and you put another one next to it, that's 100% improvement. So then they had to regrade it and review it, and I think it's now sort of in the teething phase of becoming a valuable, well thought out process, and it's still not there. Like if a pallet, like a pallet on the bottom of material so you can forklift it up, is left on site, that's considered as some form of biodiversity, because like woodlouse can get in there and make little nests and all sorts of crap. So it needs completely refining. I think that at some point, where does it stop? Because it's almost near impossible to get the allocation on the site. I've not actually heard of any single developer improving their own diversity on their own site, so much so that they don't need an off-site contribution. And that to me means the grading's off, because you're taking a parcel of land and you should improve its biodiversity, and that should be achievable on the land that you're dealing with. Equally, when you offset it, where does that offsetting go? Like, it's all well and good offsetting it, but you're then potentially tarnishing, good developable plots of land for the future. I do think it needs easing. I also think it needs to be always. I think all ecology should be done post planning. So once you've got the planning approved, you do all of the nuances with the assessments, because there's no point in doing it unless you've got a consent in hand. And I think that's also a really good start. It should move to post planning. I think most things should move to post planning, if I'm honest.
Do you mean kick them into the validation phase? Is that what you're saying? Sorry, into the pre-commencement phase.
Yeah, either as a special condition or like almost like a building control phase. So you get the consent, gets handed over to building control. Building control go, oh, hang on a second, you need to submit your BNG requirements. Then you go and submit it, and that prevents all of the councils having to review all of these assessments pre-planning, which gives them more time to give tickets for planning, and then is actually reviewed by someone that understands it.
Do you think that could still create a bottleneck, though? It kind of could kick that can to just the next stage where you still can't get on site without still discharging it at that point.
Yeah, but the delays are in planning, right? So if you have if you get your planning ticket, you then I believe, can put, let's say you've got 10 planning applications, right? If you're doing all of these assessments in Reading, you could spend, if I was doing a 2-unit new build, two houses new build site, I'll probably do 40K on planning and assessments. Out of the actual planning cost is probably about 1,500 quid, right? So I've spent £38,500 on design, all the assessments, so daylight, sunlight, air quality, noise, transport, flood, ecology, B&G, all of these various things that you have to go into consideration for. But if the majority of those, like transport is a really obvious one, because if you cannot get on site, fair enough. So that's in my opinion, a really important one that probably needs to be pre-planning. But splitting these out, and also a planning officer could probably digest a report around highways and understand it and diligently make a decision on that. Whereas if you're going into detail like the biodiversity of a site and how it's implemented, I think that should just be it's a factual figure of what you've got to achieve. You can off-site contribute. So why isn't that done after planning once you've got your ticket?
As long as, and that's the key bit there. As long as the development is approved, and that's like a kind of, as you say, like um it's a it could be a Grampian kind of condition, really, with the wording of it is really important. It's like it needs to be reasonable, where uh it's kind of like 106 type of thing. It's the planning is permitted, but this is the final, the obligation you need to pay to get to discharge the condition. The problem you've got at the moment with ecology is because the step processes that you need to prove that you can do it on site, is that they can't grant you planning, because that has a direct impact on the site layout, etc., and the change, and that then requires reconsult into other any changes to the layout requires consultation to other constitutes other than just ecologists. It goes back to placemaking, it goes back to highways, it goes back to uh, you know uh, secure by design, or neighborhoods, etc. And then you keep getting this cycle of constant reconsulting and constant delays. Um, I think it's a big problem where the government really need to set what their priority is. You can't have, I mean, you can't really build and not have a negative impact on ecology. And we've got we've got a site now which we were in planning before Wales brought in an emergency policy amendment, which included all sites already in the planning system. And we've been actively told by planning officers that 12 months ago we would have granted this. 12 months ago we would have granted this. And the step process is: can you get biodiversity net benefit on site? The answer is no, because it's an infill brown site. Old historic use is brownfield, and it's kind of like um, crap land, but it's got a ecology value, because obviously now wildlife around there. If you zoom out of that area, it is surrounded by acres and acres and hectares of of undevelopable, unzoned, high ecology value areas of significant importance, but that has no way in. And then the next step in the process, if you can't benefit on site, you have to benefit off site. But all the off site land around there is owned by the council. Speak to the council, like, right, we need to work with you now to improve your area. And they're like, well, we don't need any improvement. They're like, right, okay. So what do we do then? And we're like, well, and then the third step is we now need to provide a financial contribution. So, right, okay. So we offer a financial contribution, but then they say you can't provide a financial contribution unless it's going to a very specific cause and you quantify what that cause is and it's agreed. But we can't do that because nobody wants, in the local vicinity, upgrades to, there's no contribution to give. So then the unintended consequence of the policy they brought out, because of that, the way it is worded, is that it's stuck in our position. Obviously, in England, they would go on down then to credits. And I think that if simplifying the process and making it cheaper, it's going to be one of the only things they can do to really help further unlock more developments.
What do you then? Can I just get a yes or no answer out of you guys to then lead on to the question? Do you think the concept of biodiversity net gain, just generally speaking, do you think it's right?
I do.
I also do. I also think it, because it's a material impact and it's something we should consider. In which case, what would be the most simplest way to tackle it?
Give it to someone that understands how to deliver a construction site as a remediator to combat problems. You've essentially taken someone that's is very one-sided, and that's kind of the problem across the board, right? You're not getting someone that can actually deliver and understand and interpret what needs to be delivered. So the purpose of the biodiversity net gain is we're in a society and a culture where that we're trying to undo already badly done work. So whether it's recycling, waste, the ozone layer or whatever it may be, we're trying to like counterbalance that to not be neutral. So neutral is bringing back the same, equality back on a parcel of land. We're trying to go 100% above that particular position that it's a standpoint that it's in. I think that's obviously a huge step from nothing at all. So it's gone from not having a requirement from a biodiversity perspective to having 100% on top of what is already delivered on that particular site. And you've got to remove, typically if you're building a house on a plot, you might be building on 15% of that land plus access. So let's say 40% of that site is now going to be tarmac or hard standing or concrete or foundations, right? To take that site from 40% deficit and then 100% is 140% improvement on the areas that remain. And I think that the 100% is just too much. I think it should be staggered. I think it should be 25% improvement and then staggered over a 20-year course. So 25%, 50%, 75%, 100% is a good place to start. So we can sort of get used to it, model how the grading works, offsite contributions are relative and doesn't hit the bottom line so much, because when this came out, a lot of sites have already been bought and paid for, so that price is already factored into the old rules. So I think that that's slightly unfair. But I just think, and more consultation with actual delivery. It's all the time. Like, a perfect example is anyone that's listening has ever delivered a project that's ever gone through getting a third-party consultant involved that makes it one proposal of a plan. You then go, but well, I can't do that because then that means that I've got a clash over here, or that then means that this doesn't work here. And then they go, oh, okay, so I'll draw another plan. And then they draw another plan. And then they come back and you go, that still doesn't work because the weight load here doesn't fit this particular thing. And then you go around the houses and then you get to a point where you come to an agreement and then you can proceed on that agreement. But the BNG is predominantly, I believe, been just thrown on the developer, like, deal with it.
without the necessary resource to deal with it.
The council still doesn't, and I if anyone's done any BNG stuff, still doesn't understand it. I've strategically asked questions to the councillor, to the planning officer at the council, that I know that they'll probably slip up on the answer about BNG. They don't understand it, and I don't really understand it, but I don't understand enough to get me where I need to go. They don't understand enough to make a decision.
Let alone to consult and then give you an actual condition against that.
Do you want to know one absolute fundamental flaw in BNG is when you submit a planning application, you draw a red line around the application that you're putting forward. If you think about it, if you're putting forward a site that's 20 houses on a 5-acre site, but the 20 houses are actually only sat on 2 of the acres, and then it's gardens and further amenity or whatever it may be, you just change the red line. You reduce the size of the red line that you're putting in for a planning application. Obviously, you need your garden sizes, amenity, etc. And that is an easy way to slice off a lot of the overhead of B&G. And that is a fundamental flaw of assessment, because it's a very easy trick to use that passes. Do you want to know an interesting fact about HS2? I've read up on this the other day. So essentially with HS2, it goes through an ancient woodland in Buckinghamshire, and part of the requirement, this is less B&G and more ecology. This ancient woodland apparently habits around 300 bats, and they've had to build a specialist bat tunnel. So where we build like bat boxes, the government had to build a specialist bat tunnel, which is costing £100 million for 300 bats, which is £333,000, which is above the average price to house someone in the UK, because the average house price in the UK is 300 grand. So there's 300 bats that are better off than humans now.
And then some. Yeah, I think we did actually do a piece on that.
Yeah, you showed it on the podcast before, Ryan, the bat tunnel. that's they built that bat tunnel for the bats, but what's going to happen is you're going to have gangs just chilling out in there. But you probably don't have that in Buckinghamshire, actually, but in Wales you would.
Gangs.
And the bat, and then they would, the bats would be gone then. But yeah, I think all your points, yeah, I would agree with. I still think there should be exemptions to simplify as well, especially on smaller sites or urban areas where biodiversity is incredibly difficult to get, especially when the biodiversity that's on the site is actually just from neglect that's come up. I mean, it's not, these tight sites that need full density development to high waiting list, everything in around that they just should be exempted, in my opinion, and some of the smaller sites should as well. But then, other than that, really, it's about standardization and sensibleness, and having somebody can, as Jack's already said, people who actually can make a common sense decision, so to speak, with seeing it from the wider picture, not just from one lens. That's the problem we have in Wales. Is that what the new policy has done is that you have consultees looking at only from their ecology lens, only it's and most of it ends up in objections, and then there's no weighting system, so it gets stuck.
Yeah, I mean, we got one in Darlington, and it's end of terrace, a large end of terrace that we're turning into 8 service departments, and it's completely concrete, zero greenery possible on the site currently, and we still propose to put a tree and a planter out the front and build up a new like retaining wall around the front to create a little bit of a parking area, make it a little bit cozier and nicer. So there's still going to be a planter and a little tree that's going to go in there. And they still wanted us to then put a grass wall on the back extension on the off shot. And it's just like, why? Like someone's going to have to go up there and clip that at some point. And just some bullshit. And it's like there's a big park behind as well, like a big park, loads of trees. It just doesn't make sense in those scenarios. Like we wanted to add the planter. That's on us. Like we just wanted to put the planter in because we feel it'll be a nice sort of entrance. It serves departments, make it feel nice. But then to add these other bullshit things where it's just clearly not necessary. If it's a large piece of land, sure, you could bang on a load of trees, a load of shrubbery and whatever. But yeah, I think there should just be postcodes where BNG is just exempt. Like you don't have to think about it, or you pay some kind of contribution. It's just all gone fucking crazy. Have you seen this?
I've watched every part apart from last night's bit, which I haven't watched it.
All right, Stu, you can kick us off then, because JD Vance, just for the viewers, we got on screen a YouTube video of JD Vance in America at the Bitcoin 2025 summit doing his keynote speech. And he's basically spent the whole time going, buy Bitcoin, because America do it for America. So, Stu, do you want to give us a bit of a rundown there? What's happened?
Oh yeah, well, I mean, Vice President of the United States. Last year we had the Donald Trump at the Bitcoin 2024. I mean, they've basically built a Bitcoin strategic reserve, and they are basically putting a message out to all the governments to say that we're doing this, and we promote and support Bitcoin as a form of store of value. It's basically it's little, and then it's going to be everywhere. And I think the next 3 or 4 months, it's going to absolutely rocket as planned. Actually, last night Nigel Farage was on. Last night, I know he's doing it for political gain, 9 points ahead on the polls. But he's basically saying if he gets into government, he will be building a Bank of England strategic reserve, and that he will be dropping capital gains from 20% to 10% to get people to start spending it and to start bringing the UK back into some financial power. Where at the moment everyone's being stripped from the fiat currencies into Bitcoin. This thing is not stopping. This bus ain't slowing down. And yeah, it's exciting stuff. I think it's definitely put in Bitcoin 2025, watch some of the key highlights and just listen to some of these people who are involved now. It's so into the government. This thing is not now for drug lords and for the black market. This is now a financial base, or, this is a fantastic book, which I forgot to mention, called Layered Money. I read this a few years ago. A good friend of mine took it on holiday with him, absolutely loved it, and he was buying all XRP and all this crypto shit, all these shit coins. Layered Money basically takes out the gold at the top of the pyramid, puts Bitcoin as a scarce, desirable asset, and governments are now starting to peg all their currencies to that. So yeah, super exciting. I've just actually they done a 48-hour free Bitcoin ticket to go next year to Vegas. So I booked my free ticket, and the missus has given me a green light, so I'm off to Vegas next year because I just get absolutely hooked on it. I love watching it on TV. I love watching the people I follow.
Well, you going to You going to the Bitcoin summit? Are you?
Conference next year. I was going to go this year, but with the cruise we had and with the kids and stuff, the missus is like, it's too much. But next year, I've said I'm definitely going. So book your flights, boys. I'll see you in Vegas. I sent you a link, I think, yesterday. I was like, book it, D. Come for 3 days, mate. We won't sleep. We'll party and on in the night.
You're gonna be walking around in like a Bitcoin costume. I can see a big fucking
I'll
round.
definitely have my Bitcoin socks on, mate.
Those fake like hacker accounts messages when I got it through, I was like, what is this? Looked at my
Oh,
Instagram DMs and it's like Stuart Wyeth is in this group. I was like, oh, it's genuine.
It's fucking genuine, mate. It is. It's just so exciting. I'm just so bullish, man. And it's just like when you're orange pilled and you see it, you just can't unsee it. And what's happening now is that this thing is that's intangible. This digital magic money on the internet is becoming everything will be pegged to eventually. So definitely get off zero. Get 0.1 Bitcoin. That's all you need. Just go and buy 500 quid's worth, which you'll then have more than the average of everyone else. And it's a 500 quid punt.
Right, I'm gonna buy £500 worth today.
Yes.
I'm gonna go.
I'll ask it. My
Joe,
friend,
Where
for
do I-
500 quid.
I do need an idiot guide though, like how.
Yeah, me too. Like, where do I buy it from?
Strike.
Just
Yeah.
watch God Bless Bitcoin on YouTube. Flipping out. Watch it. Buy 500 quid's worth.
Yeah, I'd rather you just
Strike.
send me
Get a Strike
message,
account.
exactly what I need.
Get
Jack,
a
you
Strike
spend
account, link it to your
80,000
bank.
hours of your life working for your career. You can spend 100 hours learning about it. That's all I'm asking.
I'd rather just put the money in and then someone else sort it out, pay someone to do it.
Why don't you set up a Bitcoin fund, Stuart? Why don't you?
Well, that's why I've gone to this Lombard facility because the UK is still so anti Bitcoin because we're basically stripping the fiat system, or the Bank of England is becoming weaker and weaker when everyone's sort of ploughing all their capital into a parallel universe, which is the future. So yeah, it's difficult in the UK. It is difficult, and you can only put £2,500 a week into Bitcoin. They put restrictions on it, which is mad. So yeah, watch Nigel Farage as well. That will be all over the news over the next few days. I'm pretty certain he'll be using that to.
I was actually reading a book. Sorry, Stuart, I know you got to go, but it's quickly. It was about the biggest sting operation, and it was to do with the encrypted mobile phones and how they used them. And the FBI set up their own one called Anom, and basically busted criminals across the world because they all using it as like this secure encrypted phone app. And one of the other, and they used to deal criminals in a lot in Bitcoin. And because it was decentralized and so they couldn't trace it. But the problem is what this book was saying is the FBI was able to trace it because
Totally transparent.
it's totally
It's a ledger. It's like
transparent.
old network.
It's a
It's got
ledger.
one network to one network. Everything's
yeah.
transferable. So it's actually
And-
not for drug lords and for people who
Yeah, they could see all the transactions, and
you have the open transparency. If you move any network, basically it's a load of lines from one account to another account. It's there forever. So you can move the money around infinitely and see.
yeah, and all of the wallet, the companies that like serve it, whatever they're called, they provide, if the FBI or authorities want the identity of any certain user, they'll give it to them.
Both 500 quid worth, Jack. Swissborg, set up Swissborg. You have to go for a load of questions saying, do you realise you could lose everything? They scare the hell out of you. You fill out about 7 or 8 different questions. Well, no, but you're going to go from 500 quid to 300 quid to 1,500. That's what's going to happen.
You lose
But-
everything.
All right, boys. I'm going to have to love you.
How
Leave
do
a
I
last
get, how do I
question.
get how do I get a discount code? Have I got to go on like voucher or something?
There's no discount code. Just buy it. Buy your 500 quid's worth. I'll see you later, lads.
Actually, I should have said it while he was here. Hopefully, he can still hear me. Oh, can we play back the episode where me and him are having an argument where I'm saying I don't get Bitcoin if you never sell it? Because what is the benefit of dying with a load of Bitcoin? He said he will never sell it. And then on this episode earlier, he said he's going to sell some. I'm never selling any of it. I'm selling a bit of a Bitcoin to get a new house.
Oh, look at you.
Not selling it. I'm never selling it. I've come to a realization that if I can't get a Lombard facility, which is where I put 50% loan to value, so I basically put 4 Bitcoin in, they give me 2 Bitcoins worth of value, and if it drops a little bit, I put a bit more in. Never sell. Give it.
He was about to leave the front door there, and he heard that. He must have heard that in the ether. I'm coming back for that.
You know, in the Wolf of Wall Street where he goes, I'm not fucking leaving. Check the guy commandeer Stuart as obviously Jordan Belford, but he's saying, I'm not fucking selling.
Yeah. Oh, fucking hell.
Oh, I love Stuart. But I just want to add one more thing there as well. So what JD Vance was saying, because a lot of the speculation out there from the financiers is that if you're backing Bitcoin, aren't you like going against the dollar? And JD kind of covers that off in saying that if anything, holding a Bitcoin reserve in America just strengthens the dollar exponentially, and then they'll create have the tethered stable coins that will be pegged to the dollar. And then these stable coins are much more accessible globally. Think of developing nations who want exposure to things like the dollar compared to their native currencies. They can then much more easily buy into the stronger economies of the world and the Western world. So this is kind of a big leveler in terms of the banking system and the financial system around the world. So it'll be interesting to see what the fallout is here from that conviction coming from the vice president. But just wanted to make sure I covered that off. Yeah. Anything else, boys, that you want to touch on for this week? Anything else that's been happening in the property space in the UK, or any movements you've seen that might be interesting for our viewers before we close out?
I mean, there's tons of stuff happening. It's never ending, really, isn't it? The Ferris wheel of business and construction or property. I always ask myself, because I had an interview with Sam recently, actually, on the Blue Bricks, and on that day I was having one of those difficult days, you know, and I suppose that's made me pose the question: what do you guys do to get through? I don't know if your temperament's like mine. Obviously, you have good days, bad days. I feel like bipolar sometimes, and especially because the position we're in, news only comes to us if it's very good or very bad. One of them. So how do you deal with that swing, really? Yeah, and how do you deal with the challenging times?
I'd say behind you, you've got the pale blue dot up there on the wall, and I've got mine.
From you, thank you.
There's my one. I would say this here, like if I'm ever having a bad day, and I don't think I have that many bad days. Like I'm just not like I don't have a day where I'm like, oh, I feel bad. Like some stressful days, but I would say like if I ever get caught in a trap where I might be thinking about something too aggressively or too emotionally, I do just think about that kind of thesis of life, and it's like nothing's that deep really. We're all just little bipedal organisms navigating this planet, trying to figure out a way together. It doesn't have to be that deep, and I shouldn't let it make me sad. I shouldn't let business shit make me sad. That's kind of how I see it. Like if I feel sad because of something in business, then I'm just doing it to myself. It's kind of self-inflicted because you want to build this business. So it's on you if you feel sad. Different in relationship. If a relationship makes me sad, then that's fair enough. But if business does, I feel like I'm losing something that's like not quite tangible, but maybe I'm losing a part of my character or strength in my character that I don't want to have that kind of weakness. So I try and think of those things. And it's hard to do because you can have some really stressful days. But I try not to let it make me sad and just sort of go, I'll deal with that pragmatically. And that's how I'll deal with it. Other than that, I don't really have any great advice in terms of like outlets. Exercise and stuff's always good. Maybe go on a run, clear your head and shit like that. Jack, what would you say? You've dealt with some stressful times.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, the last few months have probably been the most stressful. I think everyone is different. I think that us on here probably have a very quite a well seasoned appetite for stress, and it's I actually find that I struggle now with being so desensitized with normal life, and I actually have gone so far to the point where I'm just used to taking on problems that I'm almost sometimes unemotional, and I actually find it more difficult going back the other way and trying to be sympathetic or empathetic or be real. And I actually would say that one tip that I have for you guys is I don't tend to. I'm not one of those people that I like to vent or share. I'll very rarely need to do that. I just say what I need to say, and if I want to have a conversation with someone, I will, but I won't ever bring my dirty laundry or problems to a conversation. I very rarely need to do that. But the problem that then transpires is if you're not communicating with, for example, my wife, that I've had a stressful day and I've been up against it, it then has an impact on her because she's like, why is he quiet? Why has he not asked how my day was? So communicating that just to say, look, I've had a shit day. I don't really want to talk about it, but I also want you to acknowledge that I've had that shit day because maybe I might not be as excitable and running around the house, and being as fun as I normally am. So that's one advice I would say. Portray that to the people that you live or spend time with because that's quite important. Some people might want to vent, and that's a good way, I think, of sort of sharing that load. Um, and then similar to you guys, like it is what it is, and it will be what it will be. Like often people say to me, "When's this going to happen?" I go, "When it happens." Like what more can I do? I'm doing everything that I can. I always have, like the pale blue dot. I always try and remember one sentence which I believe it sort of keeps me always at a fairly stable, logical mindset, which is you can only worry about the things that you can control, and you always have a choice. You can deal with it and do what you need to do, or you can leave it and deal with the consequences thereafter. And that, like, one sentence is just sort of to manage the things that, if something like really bad, like, my EA will often go, I'm really stressed about this. You've got to do this, this, and this. And I'm like, well, it'll be what it'll be. If I'm late, I'm late. If I get there and I'm not prepared, I'm not prepared. If it's a no, it's a no. Like you don't. I kind of almost see it as a bit like you roll the dice again after that go. Like it's just it's not that emotionally important.
I think also understanding being gratuitous as well to the good things in your life, like when you are in darker moments. If like most days, like almost every day, I think about how lucky I am that everyone I know and love is is healthy, alive, sound of mind, here to play, here to work. Like that to me is enough for me to be like, it's a positive day. Like it's a good day because shit can happen. Shit can happen in your life, completely unrelated to business, and your whole life could just go boom. Everything could just fucking disappear. And for every day that doesn't happen, and I'm positively moving in the right direction, yeah, I might have business struggles. I think being grateful and you don't have to go, thank you, God, for everything you've given me. But I think having an underlying appreciation for the things that are going right that aren't necessarily business related, the fact you have a fiance or the fact you might have children to spend time with and healthy parents and stuff like that, all those things should make us grateful and highlight those things in moments of difficulty. And that can be hard to do.
I think everyone might have their sort of mind clearing moment, whether it's going for a run. Mine is actually just I love solitude and being on my own, and I also love going to the gym just with my headphones on and just doing my own thing for an hour, and that really does give me value in like my sort of mental health. And what I'm doing, and actually, I try and turn negative things into positive character building things. So to give you an example for that, and I said earlier on this before we went online, all of the stuff that's happened to our businesses over the last few months, it has been a massive learning curve. So I always want to take learning and positive actions and how I've adapted as a person to improve every time something bad happens to me. But being in the acquisition side of things, often I've got we're the two sites that I mentioned we're buying illegal at the moment. Both of them are actually quite bullish sellers. I would say that they're one of them's a big time trader in London, and they do not take any shit. And the other one's like quite a big time developer, and they're trading the site on. And sometimes I'll go into a meeting, and I know I'm going to get a bollocking. I just know they're going to be like, "Why haven't you done this? Why haven't you done that? You're slow. You're not communicating, or whatever it may be." And I know that you could go and there's two ways you can go to that meeting. You can go into that meeting and take offense and get emotional or argue, right, in that situation. But I go into it going, I can kind of feel it's coming. How is the, and then I just go from me to win this deal over. So to remove my ego, my emotions, I remove that and I go, for me to get this deal done, I need to let them shit all over me for a good 20 minutes so they feel that they're important. I need to then, basically give them an understanding that I go, I understand that's really difficult. Actually, now you said that's made me rejudge how we've gone. Thanks. And I'm sorry for that, and acknowledge it. And then progress into a place going forward, go, right, what action points do we need to go forward here? And I leave the meeting with the best result I possibly could have had. But it just sometimes requires that thing that could have been really stressful is almost part of just character building. And that's how I'll constantly look at those situations.
That's salesmanship, listen, agree, close. You always start something like that, whether it's an objection or something positive. Listen, agree, close. Is always a way to get what you want out of life, innit? Regardless of what the circumstances. If you listen to someone, you agree with what they're saying, and then you take it in a direction that of travel that you feel more comfortable with, people rarely will have a negative response to it, unless is bad, and they go, look, shut the fuck up, don't distract from the point, and you know what point I want about, that could be a precarious situation. But yeah, if you listen to people nicely, you agree with what they're saying and understand it, then some people just don't have the humility to do that. Some people just won't listen and agree to an issue that they've caused or something like that. They'll want to go, yeah, but you don't understand because this. Second you do that, particularly with a client or an investor, you just lose them and you just end up in friction and in fights, and it's just not worth it.
What type of things don't knock you from a good place to a challenging place? Like for us, for me, I think everything I agree with all of you. The thing that's the most challenging sometimes is cash flow management because of timing issues. That always is it's very difficult mentally, I would say, out of everything. But nearly everything else, even with, as you say, Jack, difficult conversations. I've had many meetings as well where I know I'm going to get fucking bollock in here. So you just you frame it, and I do exactly the same as you say as well. It's like, you just, it's all, that's where those learnings about the art of persuasion and like how to win friends and influence people and emotional intelligence become absolutely invaluable, and is why those you still can end up still doing deals, still in the game. But for me, it's always cash flow management. It's always a thing that knocks you for six. You've got a plan, everything's fine, and then bam, 500,000 doesn't come in as it should, and it puts you back into like, oh fuck, what am I going to do on this now? Do you guys, what's the one thing that gets you?
I would have to say that feeling of like stomach, like going like, oh, that honestly, the only time that I really get that is with Honor, with my missus. If I'm like, "Oh, I've not been like, I need to treat her, I need to take her out, I need to do something with her." I can see she's like getting annoyed about something. I think particularly because of my circumstance where I'm living here and in London and see her like quite minimally. If I feel like I've not, kind of pulled my weight or not done something that I probably should have done, then I'm like, oh fuck, because that's a hard one. There's not a practical answer to it. And this is me being real. Like that's a real like that my hardest moments are that because I don't have a pragmatic solution. It's just like, yeah, I do just need to like do something with my brain. Like I need to fix that and put more attention to it. And the only other thing I'd say where I don't now, we're actually in a good cash flow position, but definitely there was a solid 2 years there where get to a Friday, ah fuck, got to make payroll tomorrow. Got to pay the construction lads. Got to keep these sites moving. Fucking hell. That's the only time where I would feel that sort of pit. Everything else, like planning not going your way or something like that, I feel like you have time with those things. You can deliberate. You can be strategic. But if you got to pay people on a day, and if you don't pay them, they ain't showing up the next day. That's a big problem. And the whole business could just stop. And those are the other times where I've felt like that stomach feeling of fuck, I've got to get the cash flow in. Like I've got no choice there. I've got to rally something. So I'd agree with you that I think cash flow and then personal stuff where you can't quite put your finger on what the solution is.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with all the above. I've got a few. So, one thing that really, 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 really grinds my gears, and I don't have to do it anymore because I've literally, it was like a couple of years into the business, it was almost the most stressed I've ever been, and that's fucking dealing with utility companies. When you're on the phone to them, you're chatting through forever, and then the line drops out, and you go, fuck. But you pass that on to the team, and they deal with that now. So that's one thing I really struggle with. And I wish I didn't, but I do. I do. If I've got loads of high value tasks that I need to do, maybe get an email out, follow up with an investor, and I've got all these things that I'm conscious that I need to do. I want to do things that, I'm like a 24-hour turnaround kind of person. I always want to get things done that day and get as much done in that day as I can. If I'm then doing something that I believe is almost like just a little bit relaxed and let's say going out to lunch with someone, even if it's a business meeting and it's service is slow or it's an hour away from my office, I get this like overwhelming like pent upness. I shouldn't be there, and I'm like, what the fuck am I doing? I'm not enjoying this. What am I? And it's even like my wife says, some days I just wish I could walk down into town and go for a coffee with you in the office between 8 and 6 o'clock. Don't even bother, because
Don't fucking bother.
but I wish I wasn't that way, but I know that she won't enjoy it because I'll be looking at my phone, I'll be seeing what's going in. I know that I've got the things I need to do. There is a little bit of context that if I get ahead of my week, I could probably take a bit of time out of the day and do that. But you can't pre-plan that day. I can't. It has to be spontaneous in the sense that I go, actually, I'm on top of everything here. Let's go out. That's fine. But we can't go, let's meet up Thursday, because I don't know what's going to happen an hour before that coffee meeting. And it's sometimes not even, it's not the job controlling me, because I know that I'll get it done, but it's just I'd rather get it done now and not do the coffee first, if you get what I mean. So I get quite pent up in that space. And then last but not least, the tummy stuff that you mentioned, the most I ever get that is when something's out of my control. So I know that if we're dealing with something in my own team, or I need to go and make a decision on something, and it's a really important decision, I never get nervous. I never get the stomach dropping. Never get any of that. But if it's I've thrown let's say a bank's upset or an investor's upset, and they just need a bit of smoothing over, but then they sort of go quiet and you don't know what's going on. I hate that. Like, if there's no communication, I go, fuck.
We know how to get under Jack's skin then, just give him the silent treatment. Do a typical Facebook post and say to Jack something along the lines, yeah, not or do you know those Facebook posts I'm on about, where someone posts saying, "Can't believe he did that," and then people are commenting saying, "Hope everything, like, what's wrong? Everything okay?"
Who
They
is
say
it?
like, Don't worry about it.
Is it Jack?
Don't worry about it." Like,
What Jack, do you think though that because I also get that feeling, particularly in social scenarios where I'm like, I otherwise could be spending this time more efficiently. But do you think that's derived from what people call imposter syndrome, where there's this underlying guilt if you're not being effective enough because you've got this kind of privilege of living your life on your own terms and building a business and people working for you, and that pressure is kind of like subliminally saying to you, like, how dare you waste this time right now and be social? You should be working. You should be grinding 24/7. Do you think there's maybe an element of like psychological guilt that's driving that sort of sentiment, or do you think it is just a predisposition for I just want to be productive, Matt. I don't enjoy going for coffee with you. I just want to crack on. Where do you think it lands?
Yeah, I don't think it's imposter syndrome.
Jack's a workaholic. That's what his issue is.
Yeah, I mean, in actual fact, I actually rarely get imposter syndrome, because I believe that to get where I'm saying has been so much hard work, stress, and unlucky situations, and what you see, even still is just. uh, if I knew it would take this much to get here, I probably wouldn't have done it. It's and I don't feel that you can have imposter syndrome if you know that. So I would have probably done something a bit more easy, and it is difficult. It's really difficult. I think it's just more around that I preoccupy myself with ensuring that my duties for the day are carried out. I have two parts of my mind, right? I have work, and then I have no work, right? And it's almost like they don't mix. I'm not that sort of person that will get up. One prime example. I will not go to the gym if I've got 3 months of like really hard balls to the wall, like I did over the social housing stuff. I was working day and night, probably 16, 17 hours days to get stuff done, and gym goes out the window. And my wife would be like, "Why don't you go to the gym and first thing in the morning?" I was like, "It doesn't matter when I go. If I'm preoccupied with getting shit done, I'm doing that from the minute I wake up to the minute I go to bed." And that's where other people might go to the gym, wander into the office at 10 and be like, "I had a really good workout. Now let's go smash the day." I'm smashing the day already for 5 hours before that 10 o'clock, and then until 10 o'clock at night. So it's just me, I suppose, I'm just constantly fighting, just constantly want to get in a dogfight and just push everything forward. And my dad's the same. My dad's identical. He can't relax. I've learned from him, and I can relax in social situations to the point where I don't ruin everyone else's day, because my dad does that. My dad will ruin our whole family's day because he'll turn up grumpy because he doesn't want to be there. Whereas I will just say, "I can't be there because you won't enjoy my company." So I take it a step further and acknowledge that if my mood is going to ruin other people's mood, I'll try and remove myself from it, because I've got stuff to do, and I'll be more happy going and doing the stuff that I need to do. Whereas my dad will turn up and be a nuisance and ruin everyone else's day, and my sister's crying, mum's crying. And
Do you want to be like that, Jack? Do you wish you could just kind of have like
I wish I could be, work-life balance. Yeah. Yeah. Like there's a guy that is a really close family friend of ours, and I go skiing with him, and he always says, that he tries to work as little as possible. And I'm like, wow, that is just, I'm literally so far removed from that. I don't even know how to get there.
Maybe one day, mate, when you got little ones popping out, you might just have that epiphany and go, "Oh shit, there's now a new purpose."
Yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah.
Or it'll do the opposite.
Yeah, go, now there's a purpose to work even harder.
Yeah. You'll be making every excuse. Oh, I need to get into the office because this is really important.
I have learned to get better. So another really good example of how this really just bothered me. So obviously Kelly used to go to the US for months, and we've got a dog in the UK. And when Kelly would go to the US, I would be solely responsible for this dog, and I hated it. Going out for a walk at midday when I could be doing work, and I'm not able to, like, I can make phone calls, yeah, great, but I just felt so inefficient. And I've learnt to live in those moments and actually try and enjoy the walk. And that's been like a battle that I've had with myself. And Dorian, I know that you go through a similar thing with like being at home and listening to podcasts.
Well, all of this is just like identical. Yeah, it's just
Yeah, I mean, I can't even listen to podcasts in the middle of the day. I think that's inefficient. I know that is probably that, self-learning, but I just think between 9 and 5, everyone that you work with can pick up the phone or answer an email. So why waste that time doing stuff outside of that when you could do that before or after work? That's kind of like rule number 1 with me. Don't speak to me about. I will say to pals all the time. They'll call me up and be like, "How's this? How's that?" And I'll be like, "Really love speaking to you, but let's speak after work because I'm not going to enjoy this conversation."
Do you not value time in the day for having nothing to do but just think and just be like, I'm just going to think and have some space and just let my mind clear some thoughts? What should I be creatively thinking about, strategically thinking about, or do you like just having a task and a task and a task and a
I probably do neglect strategic thinking as much as I should do. I've been working on that as well, because I know that that's really how you get to, I mean, someone said to me once, it's Bill Gates, isn't it, that goes to his little lockaway cabin for 2 weeks with books. And someone said to me, I think it might have been my non-exec advisor, he said, why don't you go away, take a bit of time and have a think? And I went, I haven't got time to. And he said, if Bill Gates, one of the most successful people in the world, could take 2 weeks off work without a phone, you can. So I've been also working on that, which
I think, mate, I think my most and I think we spoke about this on the podcast before. I think my most productive and impactful things that I can do to the business come from those moments where I can just think, or a weekend, or a holiday, or something where I'm just with my thoughts, so I could think holistically about the whole business, not distracted by objectives and things to do. And I might go, do you know what? I might hire this person, or I might try this thing, and then I could do that, and that could be a 10% improvement to efficiency, which I otherwise couldn't do just performing task after task.
the only thing I'd say about that Bill Gates analogy. While I understand and agree, it's that from what I've read, he actually put himself under a lot of pressure in that 2 weeks to. He would take with him suitcases worth of, relevant materials of new topics or potential ideas, and really try to get to grips and study. It was a study. It was a study 2 weeks. Wasn't necessarily a it was quite intense from what I've read. Obviously, say.
I mean, I would love like 3 days, 4 days out of the way on my own. It's like,
You can go on lastminute.com now and get a flight out of your whatever airport's close to any. What is it, Gatwick or Heathrow?
Heathrow's the one. 5 terminals, 30 minutes away from my house.
Well, there you go. That brings us to a close. Jack's going on holiday. He's going on a therapeutic retreat. No phones. He's going to enjoy himself. But thank you, everyone who's listened to the podcast. Big love, much appreciate it. And make sure you subscribe, share the episodes. And thank you for everyone who watches. Honestly, we mean it. This was our goal. Our goal was to build something useful for people, and the viewership goes up every week consistently, and that means it's working. So, happy days. Big love. See you next week.
Ground up sound.